Hello and welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is the super talented, super helpful Gabriella Rizkallah. I got that right?
You got that right, yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thanks and welcome to the Sanctuary.
Thank you for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so I'm glad we could finally
Yeah,
connect.
me too. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I mean, it's a nice day at least today, so that's always a bonus.
Yeah, it's been raining crazy the last couple of days. I'm not sure what that was about.
Yeah, it's cold. I mean, that's
That
typical Nova
too.
Scotia weather.
that too. So you grew up in Halifax?
I did, yeah. I grew up in Halifax all my life. I moved all around the province, but I did end up the last couple years before I moved back in Michigan. So,
In the US?
yeah,
What are
brave
you doing?
US.
What are you doing in Michigan?
Well, I started in Windsor, Ontario, so just right on the border. I have some family in Michigan, so it was the closest I could get to my family without being an illegal immigrant, I guess. And then I found a program there, the program that actually got me my career today. So it was a master's of education that focused solely in art therapy, and that's how I made my way over to Michigan.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what did you want to be growing up?
What did I want to do?
When you
I
were
don't
growing
know. I
up?
mean, I always struggled in school, and the only thing that I was ever drawn to was arts and the like creative field. Later did I found out when I was like in the ninth grade that I had a learning disability, so that probably played a role in my dislike towards school. So I did start off as a teacher, so I do have a Bachelor of Education, and prior to when I was in the work field, I was like, I love doing this, but I love the students more than the work. I didn't like
Oh, wait. How, like, don't they kind of come hand in hand?
they do in a sense. So I was an art teacher, but I didn't like the limitations of the academics of like teaching art. Like it's very like basic. Um, like if you went to an art school, there's like rules that you have to follow in art, and those are, and wanted I wanted to do more. I liked
Mm,
how students, as a teacher, you kind of do play a therapist role in a sense.
mm-hmm,
So that's kind of what I was drawn towards, like when they had issues, what was going on. Art
mm,
class is kind of that class you go to kind of let loose and relax.
mm-hmm,
So that's kind of what drew me towards how can I combine art with like
mm.
therapy in a sense. And lo and behold, we found the perfect program. So that's I loved when people say like the challenge students per se. Those are the students I was drawn the most towards because I wouldn't say I was a challenge student, but I feel like I struggled and it wasn't noticed until a teacher finally picked it up, and I felt like I could relate to that student and know there was more to it
Mm,
than just like I didn't like being in your classroom kind of thing. So yeah.
And when you were teaching, like, where was that, in Michigan or Halifax?
I teach here for a little, and I was teaching in Michigan while I was going to school. So I did a little bit of a combination between the two, and I did
Okay.
some art classes too, just on the side. But I've been in
Mm,
school for 10 years. So why I
yeah.
don't know, but that's just kind of how the cookie crumbled. So
So, okay. And then I guess, when you were diagnosed with the learning disorder,
yeah,
like, I mean, you were young, right? But
yeah.
how was that experience for you?
So I struggled a lot before because my teachers would tell my mom, like, or my parents, you're lazy, she just doesn't want to do the work, blah blah blah. But it was like the work just didn't connect with me. Like even to this day, how I learn is I either have to read the words out loud or it's read to me, and that's how it registers better. It's just how my processing is. And I didn't, once I figured that out, I was like, oh, I'm not dumb. I was like, I just learn differently. And again, the schools, another limitation of like the school system is sometimes they don't, I mean, they're starting to change it a little more, but sometimes they don't cater towards those multiple learners. And as a teacher, again, for the reasons that I went into, is like I can recognize that there's different types of learners. You need different types of strategies with different kids. So it was like this like little mission of mine. Kind of
so audiobooks for you then.
Pardon? Yeah, oh, definitely. I don't do well with reading any sort of chapter book. It's just, again, how you process information is different than others. So
I guess so. Once you figured this out, what changed and how did you like schooling change for you?
yeah, I mean, so it's funny because once I was diagnosed, teachers were like, I don't know how she made it this far. Like, I don't know how she, but that's um, coping mechanisms that I figured out and strategies of how to learn and how to get through the classes with like scaving by in a sense. And I've continued to use those strategies because they worked for so long that it was just being able to recognize that there wasn't something per se like wrong. It was just I needed to utilize these strategies more than like instead of a secret way of doing this, like, oh, I figured out the better way to do it. It was actually just the way I needed to learn. So that's, and that if I guess I could say if I wasn't diagnosed and understanding like school isn't terrible, I just have to learn that I learn differently, I wouldn't have continued in school. I probably would have went on a different path. So I do thank the teacher who did kind of recognize that in me, and to this day I've actually worked with him as a teacher, which is so funny because you just do the whole circle around and I'm just like, you're the teacher that helped me through life.
Yeah, I mean, I think most hopefully everyone has that one or two or three, but like that one teacher that just really sees something in you and just like pushes you. So when you're sharing that kind of story, I remember like some teacher I had in school that was like, okay, do this and do that, and like, and sometimes did it. I guess sometimes it can be trying though. Like it almost like, oh, this person is speaking on me, especially when you're that young. But like in retrospect, personally, I was like, oh, this is what that person was doing, and
Yeah.
it kind of led me on this path I'm on now.
Yeah, exactly. And teachers, I mean, in every profession there's good and bad, but you can always remember that teacher that kind of made a difference, and you sometimes you don't recognize it again until you get older and you're like, oh, like they weren't being mean. They were just trying to help me and help me navigate through life. So sometimes we don't give teachers enough credit, I don't think. Especially
So,
now.
oh my God, with the online thing, right?
Oh God, I couldn't imagine.
So, with art and drawing and stuff, how did that, like, did you just start drawing as a
Um,
kid?
I guess I would doodle a lot. Like again, I'm a visual learner, so I would write down things, doodle a lot. It's just kind of where my brain would at. I was never someone who would pick up a book and read it, like because I didn't register with me. So I'd always do visuals or something along those lines. And when I got out of high school, I went to art school, and I was like, this isn't school at all. This is so fun. So it's just kind of things that connected with me, and I continue to kind of focus on that path because it is something that resonated with me. I feel like sometimes in schools you can be directed towards certain parts because maybe financially it's better or whatnot, but I always say like follow your heart and go with like really what you're passionate about, because at the end of the day it's going to be what you're most motivated to do.
Mm, mm. Um, what art school did you go to?
I went to NASCAD.
How was that experience? Because that first year you kind of have to do everything, right?
Yeah, so the first year you kind of just navigate yourself and they put you in a bunch of different like drawing, textiles, pottery, so you kind of feel it all out and then you pick your major or your minor.
Mm-hmm.
I was in NASCAT. It started off I think a couple years in, it started those protests. Do you remember when they were protesting NASCAR? And
The film. Oh,
it was
yeah.
probably about 7, 8 years ago. Like, I don't know if there was a change that they were going to connect to Dalhousie. I don't remember the issue, but that was around the time I was there. So,
Mm.
um, NASCAD is one of the only, I think, art schools within it, not like art schools. There's obviously other art schools, but NASCAD and like Emily Carr and those kind of schools, the ones that you can get just solely craft and those kind of degrees. There's not much in the province, and there's not much if you go outside the province. I think the closest is Montreal. So you did get such a wide variety of individuals that you encountered there. So it was a
Mm.
great experience. There was at one point I was like, what am I gonna do like with with an art degree? So I did. This is actually a good thing to mention because there was a moment that I was at NASCAT that I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. So 2 years in, I went to SMU. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if anybody knows this part of my story, but in the time that I was at SMU, I did psychology courses, and I really
Oh.
loved them. But I only went there for about a year, and then I'm like, no, I'm NASCAT is the place to be, and I went back. But those psychology courses that I did in SMU were able to transfer to my prerequisites to my master's program. So
Nice.
everything just kind of worked out in my favor.
Why did you decide to like pick psychology?
I think it's just fascinating. I just think like the human brain is the most unique and kind of under recognized part of the body because you can't see it, so it's not tangible. You don't know what's going on, but there's so much studies and information about it that it's so intriguing to me, and that's why we're here.
Okay, so you do NASCAR, but like after that first year, what did you, I guess, specialize in? Was it like fine art or what?
I did. So my major is interdisciplinary, but that's because I was a couple classes shy of photography. So I did a lot of photography courses. Um, I did a lot. I did jewelry. I did some textiles. But if I did a few more courses, it would have been photography. But because I did a little bit of everything, I have an interdisciplinary degree. But I loved the photography department. They still have. I don't know if they still have it now, but when I was in school, you were able to develop film still.
Mm.
Like there was a dark room, um, there was developing sites, so you were able to do that, like the kind of the basics, the start. So you learned how to look at a picture, you learned how to take a picture because you only had 24 pictures on a roll. So you were forced to actually understand what you were doing, understand the pictures you were taking, which is kind of, it could be a fault nowadays because you have those digital cameras that kind of just click, 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 click. So that was one of my things that I'd like to, like, I guess I wouldn't say like brag about, but I love the fact that I was able to start from the start of like photography and understand
Mm.
like imagery and framing and those types of things. So
Yeah. Do you still shoot with film or?
I have a collection of film cameras. I have undeveloped film because there's nowhere to physically develop them here now. There's no dark
Wait,
rooms.
there is an Instagram I follow, and I think the person has a dark room in Halifax. I think
Really?
so. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think so.
I was away for a few years, so I don't know what goes on in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I'll find out, and send it to you because I remember, and I was like, it's fascinating to me. Like, when I was a kid, there was this camera that it's weird because you kind of have to look inside. I don't know what
Yeah,
they
a
say. Kind
Mamiya.
of have to
Two
look
lenses?
inside and shoot like this.
Are they two lenses?
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, it
It's
has two
yeah,
lenses. Yeah.
that's a Mamiya. Yeah, I have one of those.
Oh my god! Like I always wanted to see, and I never got to see what's inside it. Like whatever it is they're looking at. But like, yeah, okay, now I'm gonna get ready to shoot. And so
And
that fascinated me. And I remember like the camera I owned was those disposable cameras.
yeah.
Yeah, and I took a couple of photos with it, and they were so bad. So I didn't take any photos again but like the next camera I got was a digital one. So I never really shot with film, and I find it fascinating. Cause like when you watch documentary about photography, it's like, especially those ones where those guys have to cover their head and like, you
I've
know,
done that one.
you've done.
I went out in public with that one. I looked like a crazy person with my big camera, but I needed
Wait,
it for the project.
what is happening under the hood? Tell me.
You have to, because you can't see the image, and you also have to be like closed off. Like you have to kind of seal yourself from the light to see what you're taking a picture of. They're called box cameras, I believe. I don't. Maybe that's not the technical term, but they're so big and
Is
so
it black and white?
Yes, I don't think you can get colored film for that. There's and the film they're huge. Like the film, I probably have like examples of the actual film pieces because I kept all my my film slides with me. So they're somewhere
nice.
around here.
When you used to take photos back then, like were there things you were gravitated to taking photos of?
Oh yeah, actually, I love taking pictures of like unconventional things that people don't really notice. So I did a whole series about like garbage, like and made it like seem. I know it seems weird, but I like there was. For example, there's a poop bag on the side of the road, but it was a beautifully colored poop bag in the grass. It was beautiful. So I took a picture and I used a macro lens, so a very close-up lens, so you couldn't tell it was a poop bag, but you could I asked people to guess what they thought it was. They're like, I don't know, like glass, and I was like, just finding like the beauty in things that you wouldn't conventionally look at is
Yeah. So how was, I guess, all of NASCAR the experience for you?
I liked it. There's definitely some, obviously there's political things with all kinds of schools. So, I liked it. I love the photo department. That's the time I spent the most in, and that's the people in it were always so helpful, and it was like a little family. I guess it was just more like, what am I going to do with an art degree at the end? Like, I'm doing these things I love so much, but what am I going to do? And I guess the downfall that I could say with NASCAT, I don't know about nowadays, but when I went to school, they don't teach you how to market yourself. They don't teach you how to become a living artist. I grew up with parents, immigrant parents who worked all their life and have a cafe downtown. So I understood business and like kind of working to that point of like getting yourself out there. But then there's some people that just, they don't have that experience. They don't have that knowledge. And when they get out of NASCAT, what are you going to do? Like you're told not to undersell yourself, but how can you sell yourself? Like, how can you get to the selling point? So it could be a difficult outcome, and not that NASCAT is faulted in any sense, but I guess it's the same in like high school when they don't teach you finances. There's just some missing pieces to certain things, and that would have been beneficial to a lot of people. And I don't know about nowadays if they've changed it, but when I was in school, it wasn't really talked about. It was more so just don't undersell yourself. You're worth your art and that kind of stuff, which is true, but you still have to understand how to be, a successful or even livable artist.
I mean, you have to pay the bill somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you left NASCAT, did you go straight to teaching art, or?
I went straight to education to do my BEd. That's why I've been in school for so long.
Oh.
So that
Which school did you go to?
I went to St. FX. So I went
Yeah. Why, you were tired of Halifax right then? I mean, you had options here.
They actually have an amazing education department there. So when I was looking at the schools, there was Acadia, there was the Mount, and St. FX, and St. FX is the one that I was drawn to the most. There was a lot of interaction with students and teachers. Like there was a lot of hands-on is what I found out. So that's kind of why I went there, and it was an amazing program. I can't say enough good things about the teachers and the faculty there. So in any conditions, awesome. Like it's such a great little town, so I loved it there.
So And how was it there though? Like studying education, like, and then you're done with your art degree, you're like, okay, I'm gonna study education. Like, there's no direct link between the two, I don't think.
So when you do an education program, you have teachables. So they base you on, or you get accepted based on like what
What
you're
you
going to
can
be as a
teach.
teacher. So my teachable,
Oh.
yeah. So my teachables were art and social studies because I had art history courses. So I'm technically licensed as a secondary, so a high school, middle school art and social studies teacher. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So
okay, okay.
there is so if you go to school and you do an English degree, you can
Yeah, you'll be
do
like,
it.
oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then, so like, then what did you do after SNFX? Oh my
After
God, where's your ring? Like, why do like, why? Like you can't see, like everyone has that ring. I mean, I get it. Like,
I wear it on and off. Right now, I put on my mom's ring, but I had it on for a long time. But then I just was like, nah, I feel like a different ring. But also, we've been in isolation, so I was like, nobody's gonna know. I feel like a fraud.
okay. What did you do after SNFX?
Right after St. FX is when I moved to Ontario. So I was like, I am done with Nova Scotia. When I left Nova Scotia, there was nothing going on. Like there was none of this like development, this housing
Mm.
crisis. Like there was like people were leaving. People were
Oh.
leaving at the same time. It was 2016, I believe it was, and I just
Mm.
feel like it was just kind of a little stagnant. I was like, I just need a change of pace. I need to see something else.
Mm.
And my cousins again were in Michigan. They were the only family other than Nova Scotia and like Lebanon that were close. So that's where I ended up, and that was an experience.
How?
I didn't particularly care for Windsor, Ontario. It was hard to get a teaching job in Nova Scotia at that time then, but in Ontario you couldn't even be a substitute, or at least in Windsor you couldn't even be a substitute teacher. There was just the job market was maybe worse than it was in Nova Scotia at the time. So I was like, I gotta
Oh.
find something to do. So that's I always said I would do my master's. I didn't think I was gonna do it that fast, but I did,
Mm.
and I'm really glad I
And
did.
then the masters was in Michigan, right?
Yeah, the master's was just right
How
over.
did you discover the course?
So there's a Canadian Art Therapy Association website. So I was toying between doing a Master's of Fine Arts or a Master's of Art Therapy in some way. So I just didn't know. So the Canadian Art Therapy website actually has a list of approved programs. Um, and my cousins told me about Wayne State, and they're like, I think there's an art therapy program there. I was like, what? There is? It's so close. So they told me about it, and I checked it out, and it was basically everything I wanted. It was a
Mm.
master's of education, but it solely focused on art therapy. So I was like, that's the one. Because the next closest one would have been Concordia in Montreal, and
Uh,
I would have been completely alone there. So just needed a little support.
yeah. True.
Yeah.
It's on the other side. And how was that experience? You were there what 2 years? Was it 2 years or so?
It was started in 2017, and I graduated in 2019. 17.
Yeah, yeah,
2.5 years probably.
yeah.
3 years.
And how was that one?
I love the program. Living in America is a culture shock.
In what way?
You just so when you visit, you're like, oh, this is so fun. Like they have so much stuff. There's so much things to do. And coming from Nova Scotia, like we don't have big box stores like they do in the States. We don't have like all this. They just had anything you wanted, you could find it. But it was just so. My school is in Detroit, Michigan, which is a very large Black community, African community. So just knowing, like, I don't know, it was so bizarre how people were so. You know where I'm going with this.
No, I'm not sure.
They were just not nice. Like they were just not nice people. Like they would. I had one of my coworkers, because I worked on campus. He was a Black male in the social work program. He's like, I've had people cross the road from me. I've had people like look at me funny. I've had people call people on me. I was just like, you are literally the nicest person I've ever met. And and he was in social work. He was working with children. Like he couldn't have done anything else that was right, but just because of like what he looked like and the area that you were in, like people just, it was a bizarre juxtaposition. Is that the right word? From what I grew up in. Obviously there's, that kind of stuff everywhere you go, but I just felt it was more apparent, especially with like schools, because I did work at the schools, and their schools are funded by the areas they live in. So if you live in a beautiful, high class, predominantly white usually neighborhood, you had a great education. 5 minutes down the road, you would find not so good education, not so good schooling, predominantly Black. And then the white kids in the school, they would say like, I once had this experience with this woman. I didn't know her. I met her for 3 seconds in like a coffee shop, and she's asked me where I lived, and I told her, and she said, oh, there's a lot of Black kids that run around the roads. I was like, how do you not know that I don't have like a Black partner, or that I'm Black myself? Because I'm clearly not like white, like I have some sort of foreign in me. But just the fact that she just blatantly said that to a stranger was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. And I was like, to my cousin, I was like, we have to leave. Like this woman thinks I'm one of her. And at that time I was like, should I have said something? But then I was like, pick your battles. Like,
yeah,
especially in a place that you're not really familiar with. So it was just, it was a bizarre concept, because when I was working in schools, it doesn't matter if you were Black or white, the kids acted the same. It was just how they were brought up in the area that they were in. It had nothing to do with that. So just even knowing the area I was in and being in the schools, and then that woman saying something to me, I was like, you got another thing coming, lady. So
you were there for 2 years, right? Well, 2.5 years. Did you move back to like Canada right after school?
I moved back, so I didn't even graduate yet. I moved back to Nova Scotia when I was doing my practicum. So I was pregnant with my son. I was, I don't know, 4 or 5 months pregnant at the time when I moved back, and I did the rest of my practicum here in Nova Scotia. I did my is it called a practicum? I think it's called a practicum. I started out at a youth facility, a youth jail basically in Detroit, and then I asked if I could do the rest in Nova Scotia because I was gonna have a baby at the end of my graduation. So that's kind of where we ended up, and it was 2019. I graduated in August. So.
And you met your partner, like, did you go to Michigan with your partner, or?
No, he's American. I found
okay.
I found an American. I brought him back home. He's an honorary Canadian now.
Oh, nice. And then so you come back, you have you're super pregnant.
I'm super pregnant.
Yeah, and while still doing your course, right?
Yeah.
And then which came first, the baby or graduation?
That's funny. So I graduated in August. My baby came in September.
Oh, wow.
I was real pregnant by the end of it. And everybody was super kind. They're like, are you sure you don't need the baby? Because we're good. We're good. He did come 2 weeks early, but at least it wasn't in school. So
it wasn't in school.
Yeah.
And then have the child. Did you take time off before going back to?
I did take maternity leave, but so I think he was 6 months old when the pandemic hit. So during that time, I have the Instagram account. I wasn't really using it regularly, but once the pandemic hit, I was like, I should offer my services. Like, I'm not working, but I can help people and I could offer my services. So I did. And that's kind of where it began. I didn't start taking clients till just this September, but during the whole pandemic, I was connecting with people and offering services, and um, kind of giving just like art therapy
Mm,
help in
mm,
a sense, like little
yeah.
activities. Yeah.
So okay. D- so like you had you're still doing the art thing in school, right? When you came back for your practicum, right?
Yeah.
And then when you had your baby, did you like, with the pandemic and stuff, like offering services, did you just start your business right away?
No, so when I was offering services through my Instagram and such, it was mostly like, this is the knowledge I have, and these are the tools that I can help you with. I didn't like take on clients or per se, but it was
Mm-hmm.
more, if you need something to relax or an outlet, like you could try this, or if you need
Mm,
something to kind of lower your anxiety, try this. So I guess resources would be a better word to use because,
okay.
um, I just wasn't going to take on clients at that time. And I mean, I had a 6 month old and he was,
Yeah. And then what point did you decide, okay, you were ready to take on clients?
when he was about 1 years old, I started taking clients. So
Mm.
when he turned,
And what was your approach to that?
it was just, I basically just announced it on my Instagram and I was just like, I'm, I'm finally taking people. Come over. Um, which was, I mean, it was great the turnout of people that kind of reached out and they were like just interested about what is art therapy, not per se like I want therapy services. It was like, what is this? Like it seems
Hmm.
so interesting. Tell me more about it. And I think that's more of how I've been gaining kind of I guess community in the sense because it's not it's like more of a niche. People don't know about it, but they should. And
Hmm.
that was my
You
goal.
know, that's a great way to just segue into what it really is. What is art therapy?
It's connecting. So it's basically your voice through art. So it's like not, I would say more less invasive than talk therapy because you're not face to face talking to somebody. You give them like a little directive, like draw everybody in your family doing something, like something as simple as that. Um,
Oh. Well, I would. Okay, okay. So let's do this, right? I see your Instagram, I see your website. I'm like, okay, I want to try this. And then I reach out to you. What happens? Like, what's the process?
The process, so I usually have a consultation. So I have a free consultation and people can reach out and kind of tell me what if they want to know about art therapy, what's going on with them. So we kind of have a little consultation about it and then I tell them everything I do and
Hmm.
kind of how a session would look. I do virtual and in person. I've been more doing more virtual right now just because, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
basically what's going on right now with us. So
Right, 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 right,
um
right.
but after that I just give them the option and everything is fully bookable on my website so I don't want to ever make someone feel like they need to book a session with me if they chat with me about things.
Mm,
I leave it open. If they have questions, connect again. If you want to book a session, go right ahead. Like I'm
yeah.
willing and open to do whatever you need to feel comfortable, kind of thing. So
Hmm.
that's kind of how I've gone about it. I don't know. I got a lot of individuals asking about how to become an art therapist, which is pretty awesome too, because uh, again, Nova Scotia, it's not something you have to go to Montreal to be an art therapist. That's the
Oh
closest place to
wow.
go. So it's not really known around here.
Hmm.
But I think there's like a handful of art therapists in Nova Scotia.
So okay, and then we do the consultation, and I'm like, all right, this is something I want to do. What happens from there?
Again, they just if they want to book a session, they can. If they don't, then they don't. But for the most part, I just use it as an educational piece. Like, this is what art therapy is. This is how it works. If you want to go ahead with it, then we can book a session. It's I try to make it as easy as possible because I don't for myself, I need basic. So I'm like I need to give basic back. Like I
Mm,
need to make it as easy as possible for somebody else so they don't because therapy is intimidating. Like saying you need help is intimidating. So even getting to
mm,
that point, it's mostly just trying to make someone feel comfortable and validate that they're okay, is that this is okay and this is normal. Like it's good that you want to work on yourself and kind of thanks for thanks for reaching out kind of thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
And then I booked a session. Was it a typical session? Like, I mean, I it is different for everybody based on where they are, but like,
Yeah.
what's an average one like?
I
How
mean,
long? How long does it last for?
they're 50 minutes, so 50.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can ask for longer, but normally you don't. I wouldn't go longer than that. You don't really need it. It can be mentally exhausting for both people. So everybody's different. I work with individuals with autism to adults to children. Like it all depends on what they're seeking therapy services for. Um, I don't know. I can't really. I get this question a lot actually. Like, how does it like? What would it? You can't really cookie cut a session to someone because everybody's
Yeah,
unique.
it depends on what the person needs, right?
Yeah, and I feel like if someone's nervous about something, you try a different method. Whether somebody's kind of open and gone through therapy services before, like you can kind of dive a little bit more deeper. So
Mm.
it's kind of reading your clients and being like in tune with like their emotions and understanding like this is uncomfortable or this is comfortable. So yeah.
Mm. Mm. You've done it for a while, have a couple of clients,
Mhm.
and kind of work with them based on where they are and what they need. Um, what are some tools that you use?
I use so I have just an abundance of art supplies back here. So,
Right.
I never limit what art supplies they want. I always ask them like what they want to use or what they're most comfortable with.
Yeah.
I I would only like direct art supplies if there's a need for it. So there's certain art supplies that would be more like anxious for someone to use, like something like watercolor because there's less control. So I don't typically tell them what supply to use unless there's a need, unless we're trying to kind of like pick at something in a way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people like using pencil because there's control, there's an eraser. If you ask them to step to marker, not as much control, can erase. So it just depends on comfort level. And there's a
But
lot of,
yeah, no, here's the thing though. I can't draw. I have this daily thing where I draw like a
I gotta
stick figure.
stop you. You can't say you can't draw because you can't draw to the standards of society. However, everybody can inherently create. You were born to create.
Okay, fine. Fine, I'll take that. But I guess using what you're saying, like when I draw, I have this stick figure person I draw every day, and they're supposed to kind of represent me. But it's more about what they're saying or what they're referring to this person. So you like tell me. I mean, you just mentioned that you tell a client if they could like write a say draw a picture of their family. I wouldn't know what to do. Like, it's just gonna be stick figures. Like, how would you be able to work with me based on my not up to standard of society drawing type
So it's
thing?
it's never about what you're drawing, it's about the process. And there's a huge talking
Oh.
part with art therapy. So you don't just look at their picture and you're like, this is what's going on with you. That's a huge no-no
Mm.
because you can't assume. You're taught indicators, you're taught certain symbols and cues that might be in an imagery, but you can't just assume that's what it is unless you have that conversation. So for example, that
Oh.
one, draw your family, I would say draw your family all doing something. So that's doing some sort of action. So if somebody drew like their dad sitting down having a drink, you can be like, what's your dad doing? Oh, he's having said drink. And that could be an indicator of something else. And then what's your mom doing? Oh, she's in the kitchen cleaning. She usually like is doing some sort of cleaning. Like there's just these little things
Oh.
that you can get indicators of.
Yeah, I thought you just look at it and be like, oh yeah, you have
No,
anxiety. Go.
no. I mean, that's a huge misconception. People are like, oh, go draw with your clients.
Yeah.
I'm not drawing with my. I mean, I can, but
Yeah.
there's so much more to it for anxiety. Like there might be a lot of like little pen marks, like a bunch of over and over lines, and you're like, do you feel anxious at times? Like you just ask like questions that might bring out what's going on in their life. So it's just kind of
Mm,
indicators to help that conversation along.
mm. Wow. And then here's the thing though, growing up, you love drawing. Uh, and now you're using it to help people navigate their lives, right?
Yeah.
Does it, I guess, doing what you do you ever, like, does it ever, it's work, right? So
Yeah.
this might be the wrong question, but like, does it ever just feel too worky? Like, oh, I'm just doing, or do you ever take time to just do art for itself and for you?
I feel like I might be a hypocrite if I didn't practice art as self-care. So I do try to do art on my own time. It's hard with a toddler, but when I
Mm,
do have the time, I will. Most of my like Instagram posts for stuff, they're not client work. It's mostly my work. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, I do try as much as hard as it can be. I do try to practice what I preach because
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a very good practice of me not to.
Right, right, right. Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna let you go with this one though. Why would you say, like, someone, watching or listening to the show today, give art therapy a shot?
Um, I'm not here to sell art therapy, but I'm here to
Yeah.
educate about art therapy, and it's more, uh, if you feel if you feel like it's a hard step to go to therapy in the first place, art therapy is a good step just because you don't have to sit there and kind of talk about what's going on in a sense. You have that little barrier. I like to give an example of like it's your COVID mask. Like you're still there, you're still out, like you can still talk to people, but it's kind of blocking a bit of you so you can have that it's like a safety net in a sense.
Mm,
I don't know if you ever sit and doodle when you talk to people or if you ever
sometimes,
just
yeah.
have something going on in your hands, but it's like yeah, it's just kind of to preoccupy you from like maybe the other things that are very uncomfortable to talk to because
Mm,
emotions are uncomfortable. Nobody likes to talk about how they're
mm.
feeling. So, yeah,
Wow. Okay. I said that was the last one.
I
I
think you're
kind of.
cutting out slightly on me.
Oh, no. I was saying I thought that was the
Oh
last one, but
no.
like maybe
Yeah.
I'll add one more. And it's this, right? When it comes to art, which do you prefer, like pencil, watercolor, markers?
What do I like to use?
Mm-hmm.
I like to do really expressive like art paintings. I like big brush strokes. Not really a direction when it comes to it, just taking the brush, putting it some paint and putting it all
Mm-hmm.
over the canvas kind of thing. I've always been somebody who flies by the seat of my pants, and I feel like my art also is that way.
But like one thing about your art is like it's really, really colorful.
I think you're
Why?
froze.
Why do you? Why is like using a lot of colors important to you? Because like you use colors a lot and like bright colors too.
What? Sorry, you cut out a little bit. I only heard
Oh no,
colors.
I was saying like why do you prefer using super bright colors when you make art?
I don't think it's something like a preference per se. I think it's just kind of how I'm feeling that day. A lot of things that I can direct in art therapy is like pick a color that represents your mood, and maybe my images are bright because I feel happy. But it just I guess it really depends because I I don't pick a color per se. If you ask me my favorite color, I could pick one maybe, but it doesn't it really depends.
Yeah. Oh man, Gabriella, thank you so much for sharing and for being so helpful with all you do. I know that being a mom, running a business, like having a partner, all these three things is like so much, but you do it with grace, and I really, really appreciative of your time, and thanks for coming to the sanctuary today.
Thank you for being so persistent on getting this done because there's been a lot going on, and I'm glad it's